Okay, this is the first in the series. Actually, the first is the introduction, but the first of the series of videos about the 10 disciplines. Let me just say a little bit about why there are 10. At one point, I had a list of the 7 disciplines, and then new ones kept popping up, and I could probably make this a list longer than 10, but these seem to be the kind of core things that are relevant to what it is we need to do for ourselves if we want to deepen into our relationship with ourselves such that we can be more deeply and peaceably, harmoniously connected to others. How do we know who we are such that we can be with someone else in a harmonious and constructive and satisfying way? Okay, so as we move along, you will see that each of the disciplines gets more complicated. And so this is the first one. This is the simplest, but it's not the easiest. As a matter of fact, I would say this is probably the hardest one to do based on how many people actually do it. So I'm not going to ask you to commit to do this every day. I'm going to suggest that you do it every day, but if you do it for a couple of weeks, it's going to begin to change your habit, and then you can do it again for another couple of weeks after, kind of feel your way into it. But the basic premise of the Bothers Me log is that we want to pay attention every day to what bothered me today. I'm just going to make a list. This is not a big narrative. I'm not writing up, paragraphs about what it was that was. I mean, you can. Journaling's great, but that's just going to make it more time consuming. Just 5 minutes every day. Sit down and make a list of what were the things that have happened since the last time I made the list. What are the things that bothered me? Now, what you're going to discover is that to some degree, it's the same thing over and over again. Oh, there's that one again. The eye roll. It's like, oh, there's that keeps happening. I had a colleague of mine who took the class on the 10 disciplines, and she said, I think I'm doing this Bothers Me log wrong. At one point, she had a little break in her schedule during the day, and she went into her office and she sat down. She's going to write down the things that bothered her. And she just walked into her office from the hall, and one of the things that's in the hall is this picture on the wall that's skewed. It's not square with the world. So she got up and she went back out into the hallway and she straightened the picture. And it's like, well, that's no big deal. But for how long has that picture been a kilter and she didn't fix it? We don't fix things until we notice that they're bothering us. I'm a runner, not so much now. My left knee's getting a little wonky, but I live fairly close to Forest Park in St. Louis, and we have this great running trail that goes all the way around the park, but it's got this little pea gravel, it's kind of stuff with edges on it, and my running shoes seem to have a real knack for being able to pick up these little pieces of gravel, and somehow they end up in my shoe. I don't understand how it is that happens, but a fairly significant number of times it happens. I've got a rock in my shoe. Now, as I'm running along and I notice, oh, I've got a rock in my shoe, I can say to myself, well, it's not a very big rock, or I don't have very far to go, or it's not towards the bottom of my foot yet, or if I run a little funny, I can kind of get over there to this, But at the point at which I say, oh, I've got a rock in my shoe and it's bothering me and I don't want it to harm me, I already have available to me the technology for solving the problem. Lots of benches along the way. I can sit on as a bench. I can take my shoe off. I can let the rock out. I have available to me both the technology and the competence to solve the problem, but I don't do that until I notice, oh, there is a rock in my shoe and it could potentially harm me. And I care enough about me that I'm going to do something about it, so I'm going to sit down and I'm going to take my shoe off and I'm going to fix it. The Bothers Me log is about paying attention to what are the things that are bothering me. Most of us don't want to know. I don't want to be bothered. If I pay attention to what's bothering me, it's going to be overwhelming. I'm not going to be able to fix it. So we make up all these kinds of reasons about why it is we don't want to know what bothers us. I've had colleagues of mine suggest about organizations that they worked with that they didn't want to help the organization figure out what wasn't working because they didn't want to start a conflict. Well, these disciplines are all about dealing with the conflicts that already exist. We're not starting them, but if we don't acknowledge them, we can't address them. A conflict is a problem that I don't yet know how to solve. And ignoring it doesn't mean the problem's not there. It just means I'm not dealing with it. So what the Bothers Me log is fundamentally about is adopting a stance in my life that says, I'm going to pay attention to what's bothering me because I care about me and I'm going to act on my behalf. And if I discover that there's some problem I can't fix, then I'm going to figure out how to think about it differently such that I can begin to fix it. So it's basically a statement that I trust me to be able to deal with this. Now, you're not alone with this. Lots of people doing this with you. You know, you can ask questions, you can get help, but you're not going to get help for a problem you don't know you have. So the Bothers Me log is about paying attention to what it is that's bothering you. And what you will notice, I guarantee it, is that it's the same thing over and over again. There are patterns that are happening. We are not going to stop the pattern. We're going to figure out how to relate to the pattern in a new way such that when it arises, we have things that we can do that will move us towards what we need. It is our obligation as healthy organisms, if you want to be healthy, to make the choices that will move you towards what you need. And for you to be able to do that, you have to know when you're not getting what you need. So the Bothers Me log is a discipline for teaching myself that I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to watch. I'm going to say to that part of me that says, oh, that's not that big a deal. Don't let it bother you. Water off a duck's back. Don't trip off of that. No, I'm going to pay attention because I'm worth it. I care about whether or not that rock is damaging my shoe. I can fix it if I pay attention to the fact that I've got a problem. So that, in brief, is the first discipline. Pay attention. All right? Take care.